Honorable Raphael Nakacinda and Honorable Given Luwinda. And also, I'm trying to have a conversation with a group involving President Sean Tembo and Chris Zumani. So he categorized you in two groupings. So when you say that there are others that are making decisions without consulting, the decisions are not unilateral, does this already tell us that the Sean Tembo and Chris Zumani group have been making decisions without your consultation? Because Dr. Danny Pule already told us who the groupings are. So then does that give us that it's Sean Tembo making these decisions without consulting you, or it's the other way around? You've been making decisions without consulting them.
No. I think Dr. Dan Pule or Professor Dan Pule has his view, which view I think we must respect. Our own position is that this attempt to create, quote-unquote, two groupings of Sean Tembo Zumani and Patriotic Front is an unnecessary perception on narrative to advance. There is Tonse. There could be one or two individuals that may just require to be guided on how best they can contribute to uniting a Tonse alliance. For me and Honorable Wind and others, we are deployees of Patriotic Front into Tonse, just like President Lungu was a deployee.
So when you say reconciliation, who do you want to reconcile with in Tonse?
Reconciliation is that if there are, the word reconciliation is used deliberately. If you belong to an organization and like you're saying, it looks like there are squabbles or issues that are prevailing that speak to disunity. For you to attain unity, you have to engage and be able to reconcile your thoughts, your ideas, and if at all there are differences at personal level, reconcile at personal level. The depth and the definition of the differences can only be understood when people come to the table. For now, because the discussions are still on, I may not be able to authoritatively say the difference emanates from this one particular aspect. Maybe it could just be personality clashes,
So who are you having these discussions with in your road to reconciliation?
Everybody in Tonse.
Such as?
We have had discussions with Professor Dan Pule himself, at our initiative. We have a discussion with State Council Chifumbanda. Not necessarily that there was any difference, but just to have an appreciation of what his thoughts and input is around the alliance. We have had discussions with, President Peter Sinkamba of the Green Party and the People's Pact. We have had discussions with Professor Nason Ngoma, the former Vice Chancellor of Copperbelt University, who is basically the secretary for the People's Pact. We have had discussions with different stakeholders, including church leaders and others who have been gracious to offer themselves to make an input to make sure that the opposition remains strong, especially the Tonse Alliance.
In your press vote for reconciliation, SG, we've also heard conflicting statements from President Sean Tembo that says people want us to be sober about how we're dealing with issues in the Tonse Alliance, but we're not going to sit down and have a conversation with UPND agents. That's what he posted on his official Facebook page. What would be your reaction to that?
My reaction would be that it is those sentiments, unfortunate as they may be, that needs to be brought to the table. Let people clarify what they mean. Playing to the gallery, this smear campaign, and to try and outwit each other in terms of who speaks the loudest, I don't think is helping the alliance. What will help the alliance is sobriety, like others have said, and we have also said. If there's any sticky issue, it has to be brought to the table, discussed, so that we can be able to move forward. When people begin to to insult others and to demean others and accuse others, it may just be that maybe they are ideas on and their points of argument in their favor of their whatever ideas they have maybe have exhausted. The only thing that they may resort to is either insulting, false accusations and so on. So to that effect, I don't think we would want to start responding to things that are said where clearly you see people playing to the gallery. What we are involved in is serious business. This our discourse is in national interest. We are talking of wanting to govern over 20 million souls, and therefore we are supposed to take this assignment and calling seriously. It can't be reduced to the pettiness that I think has been expressed among politicians in this country generally. Now, as we assemble ourselves within the opposition, setup, we must demonstrate to Zambian people that we're taking this vocation or this assignment very seriously. And I am reluctant to join into pedestrian conversations around who said what. When you say UPND agents, who are the UPND agents and so on, I think, like the members say, every subject, assertions or whatever somebody may have, if it is brought on the table, it can be ironed out.
Okay, let's talk about something that sounds to be more binding. Just last week, we had news that for you to be a presidential candidate in the Tonse Alliance, you have to pay 300,000 kwacha, and also a date was set at which the president is going to be sort of unveiled or selected, and also the chairmanship role that has also been advertised. Were you consulted on those decisions that were given to the public, and that seemed binding?
First of all, it's totally out of away from what the initial agreement was, and also what the governing documents speak to. Okay. When the Tonse Alliance was formed, it was very clear that when it comes to a presidential candidate, it was already predetermined. Predetermined in the sense that the rules of engagement from Patriotic Front were very clear, that Patriotic Front was going to produce a presidential candidate.
So that was the agreement?
Yes.
The agreement when you joined Tonse Alliance was that the presidential candidate comes from the Patriotic Front.
Patriotic Front. That
was the agreement.
That was the
and
agreement.
Every political party agreed to that.
Agreed to that. Okay. Those who joined initially and even those who joined later, there was no manipulation or maybe something being sneaked in from the back door. It was in black and white. Colleagues, we are the largest opposition political party, would want to go into an alliance, but these are the conditions for which we can go into an alliance for the entire Patriotic Front machinery to be supportive to this alliance. One is that presidential candidate will come from Patriotic Front, and that's how come on the day of launch.
So you went in to bully the other political parties, SG?
The selection of words sometimes is what distorts the meaning of what you are engaged in. It's not bullying other people. It's speaking to reality. Okay? We have political parties like PEP, for example, who when you look at the structure arrangement of PEP, apart from Shontem and a few people who are in PEP, PEP is depending on Patriotic Front in relation to the structure arrangement for us, for us to really put up a meaningful political, context in 2026. The other political parties you can talk about in opposition, which one?
Christian Democratic Party, Dr.
Danpule,
Green
Party, and all that. If we are to realistically discuss in terms of the capacity at human resource level. It can't compare to Patriotic Front. So it's not about bullying. It's about, discussing realistically which political party in this case is able to bring to the table the masses required for us to really compete against the European
And at that time, all of them agreed to say yes.
And that's how
we'll
come,
go with the Patriotic Front.
That's how come President Edgar Chagwa Lungu was even declared on the day of launch that he is the candidate for 2026. Okay? And if Patriotic Front was to produce a presidential candidate, it was even declared then that President Lungu was the candidate. In the absence of President Lungu, according to even how the documents were, crafted, PF needs to go to a conference, elect a replacement of President Lungu in PF, and that is the person then that will take up his position as chairman and candidate for 2026. When President Lungu was in South Africa, and somehow, because there was a pronouncement, remember, in December of last year, that he was is it December or at least towards the end of the year, that he was ineligible. People began to shift in their seats around, issues of candidature.
In the Tonse
Alliance, which basically was emanating from a place of optimism. And we said to colleagues, look, when we went into an alliance, we were open about what our intentions were. We were all agreed to the idea that the PF will produce a presidential candidate in Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Now that he is ineligible, in this case, PF will have to go to a conference and be able to choose a leader who will then take up his role. But you could hear whispers here and there. We're magnanimous enough as Patriotic Front to say, if you have any challenge around the governing documents and the rules of engagement, please, can you make any, whatever proposals and ideas you think can work moving forward? Because what will not betray is the idea of this alliance, not working, because that's what the Zambian people have asked for. Actually, the Zambian people have even stretched that we should even encourage other opposition political parties to come to the forward so that we have one united opposition front, whether under the umbrella of Tonse or Tonse with others, so that we can be able to feature a formidable, opposition and candidate. Because I think the idea of a two-horse race in the minds of the Zambian people is what they see as the best way in which 2026 elections can be held, so that the will of the people prevails, than to have votes split. So from the perspective of Tonse, we as Patriotic Front, we said, can we revisit these discussions, not in corners, not by sponsoring confusion, because you now that President Lungu is no longer eligible, and we're still, now that he has died, you turn from your corner and say, no, I don't agree to PF producing a presidential candidate. Come to the table. And we set up a committee led by State Council Chifumbanda to be able to look at the Constitution, to look at the MOU, and see, based on the submissions of all the member political parties and organizations in Tonse, to submit what they think would be the best way to approach. The pronouncements of friends have made to say November there's going to be a Congress, we're going to elect a leader. Tonse is not a political party. Tonse is an alliance. And the member political parties...
So for starters, you're not consulted on that one?
It's not even about consultation. We can't be consulted over something that is not lawful.
So that is illegal?
Those
pronouncements
irregular.
That were made were illegal?
They are irregular. There can't be a congress or convention or conference to elect a leader in Tonse unless we then revisit the documents as an alliance to come up with a mechanism outside what was agreed initially for which a leader we made. So outside that, whatever pronouncements that have been made are basically a figment of people's imagination, or people scheming to try and do what others will call a palace coup.
So before you have those renegotiations on how that document was crafted and as things stand, what holds is that a presidential candidate still has to come from the Patriotic Front.
That is the position.
Before you revisit those conversations.
Yes.
But as a Patriotic Front, are you open for you revisiting that conversation and perhaps changing the document and
Mr. Angel, if you were paying attention to what I was saying, basically you'd have picked it that I said we initiated the discussion in the Tonse Council of Leaders meeting that was held in December, or not December, I mean in somewhere around April, and somewhere in May, where we said that all these people who may be squeaking in private corners around issues of leadership after President Lungu should come to the table and have the courage to say, we think, yes, we agreed because President Lungu was the leader of PF and he was a suitable candidate, but we think that maybe the approach should be different now that he's ineligible. People should be courageous to say that now that he has died, maybe we may have agreed to that on the assumption that he was going to be candidate in 2026. And therefore, we think let's revisit the method to which a leader will be chosen to represent Tonse in the next election.
And those conversations haven't had.
Those conversations have not happened. The committee was set up possibly in April, led by State Council Chifumbanda. You can ask him. Even in the last meeting we had last week, he was actually lamenting to the fact that my committee hasn't received any submission, save for these activities that are taking place that are only leading to confusion.
And when were you planning to meet for these conversations?
So we have now set a timeline. Up to the 15th of this month, we expect that the committee will have concluded collecting submissions, and they work on those submissions, including the documents that they are sitting on, which is the current constitution, the rules of engagement from PF, the terms of reference from Tonse, and then also the other terms of reference from People's Pact, and whatever else that they'll collect from member political parties and other stakeholders. Then they can be able to bring to the council a proposed MOU or governing document that will spell out all these issues. And upon us agreeing, as member political parties, that will become now the template that will govern us moving forward, and also determine how leadership will emerge, including selection of a candidate. But each political party is expected to follow its own constitution within that political party, and be able to put in place, as provided for in the Republican Constitution, that there must be intra-party elections that are held in a fair and transparent manner before the general election.
Yes, but
so PF is going to have that exercise undertaken. That's how come you have seen elections at lower organs being held and validation of the committees.
Yes, but also to be fair to the other camp or the other group that has gone on to announce presidential candidate fees and also all these nomination fees and the dates that they have put, one may argue to say that look at the state in which the Patriotic Front is in. Now that the former president is no more, for you to choose a presidential candidate, you have to first go to the general conference.
Yes.
But look at the state in which the Patriotic Front is in. There's already Honorable Chabinga's side, and there's also your side. So don't you think it's only ideal that perhaps people go for this other route, because we don't know when these issues are going to be sorted out. We don't know when you're going to have a general conference.
Well, when you say the state of Patriotic Front, you have to qualify it. There's just one individual being used by UPND by the name of Chabinga. The state of Patriotic Front is solid in terms of membership.
I don't think so it's solid, SJ, because if it was solid, you're going to be standing in these by-elections with candidates under the Patriotic Front. But that hasn't been the case.
Allowed me to land, we are solid as Patriotic Front. When the Mingaratos of UPND continued to a point where they were stopping us, going by what you have just said, from participating in elections, we chose now what is supposed to be properly qualified. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I need to qualify. We chose the special purpose vehicle called the NCP. NCP was a political party that really people say it doesn't have anybody apart from the few individuals who are leading. But as a way of demonstrating that PF is solid in terms of membership, we adopted NCP as a special purpose vehicle. We went to our colleagues in Tonse. They all agreed to the fact that NCP would be the special purpose vehicle.
Yeah.
We, as PF, with the support of colleagues within Tonse, we began to feature candidates on NCP. And as it were, we demonstrated by winning Petauke parliamentary by-election. We have won a local government by-election, or have won some local government by-elections, including the recent one in Impulungu. Why did we choose a small political party like NCP? It was for us to demonstrate to people like yourself that all that PF needs is a certificate. The moment we reincarnate ourselves.
If you are not able to have a certificate, then that doesn't. Then you are not solid, SG.
No.
You are not solid as a political party if you can fail to attain a certificate for your candidate to fill in nominations.
But you, as you ask, bear in mind that we are suffering at the hand of somebody who has abused institutions of government. When there was that so-called conference in 2023, the Registrar of Society, the Registrar at Registrar of Society, did say that she cannot admit the names that were being presented to change office bearers of PF because what they held is not a legal activity that can be called a conference. What transpired? She was hounded out of the office. You understand? Matters have been in court, and like you are putting it, these are matters which are supposed to be in public interest and resolved as quickly as possible. From 2023, this is 2025. Those matters have not yet been sorted out. There are people who have alleged that there is interference with the court in relation to matters to do with PF, because the UPND have this phobia or paranoia of facing, Patriotic Front in the general elections. So, to that effect,
okay, SG, to be fair with your colleagues in the Tonse Alliance, you're saying you're solid. Okay, fine. But matters of the Patriotic Front are in court. I'm thinking Tonse Alliance and their supporters are saying, we don't know how long these issues are going to take. And time is running out. Don't you think it's ideal that we move forward if it's on the 29th or 26th of November, we choose the presidential candidate and we start the build-up to 2026? Because how long are they going to wait for
you are mixing
to sort out their issues?
Okay, you are mixing things.
How am I mixing things?
When you say to be fair with people in Tonse, and then you start discussing PF issues, we are resolving our issues. And I've indicated, it's just that this is a public, we're talking to the public. I don't think all our strategies must be discussed openly like this. You understand? Our friends have been, creating issues around every effort that PF makes towards finding a suitable way or method to participate in the election of 2026. We have indicated that we are going to go to a conference on or before the month end of November. Actually, our friends
as a PF,
regardless
if the court issues are going to be sorted out.
Forget about the court issues. That's another business. But as Patriotic Front, we definitely are going to have a leader emerge within Patriotic Front, and that will be done soon before the end of November. Okay? How we're going to undertake that's a subject for another day. But Patriotic Front will choose a leadership, and that leader will then be presented to Tonse. If by that time the governing documents should have changed and it will require another selection process outside the status that that the status quo now, where the president of PF automatically becomes chair and presidential candidate. If the Tonse governing documents would have changed with the process we're undertaking, maybe what will be dictated by those documents is what will subsist. But if the governing documents remain as they are, when we are done with our process of choosing a leader, that leader will be presented as chair and candidate for Tonse Alliance. That is the position. The only challenge is that there are people who want to also involve themselves in the affairs of Patriotic Front, you understand, and make them the Tonse Alliance affairs. Okay? The process within, Christian Democratic Party, Professor Danpule's political party, how they choose a leader and all that remains their internal affair. We will not interfere. What happens in PEP will not interfere. If they go to a conference and Sean Tembo is voted out and another person is made president, we will not interfere. But their slot in Tonse will remain intact, based on the governing document. So even us as PF, we have our own internal process of replacing President Lungu now that is gone. And the one who take the mantle is the one who will be presented to Tonse as a deployee of PF. And then that deployee of PF, depending on the position of PF within Tonse, they will take up that responsibility.
Yeah, so then how do we navigate? Your spokesperson has said it's take it or leave it. We have announced those that are not comfortable can jump off the train. But for us, this is what we have decided. 300,000 kwacha, presidential candidate, you pay, and we select, and it's done. It looks like it's binding. How do you navigate that challenge?
Well, I think we'll give chance to the processes underway to be able to deal with whatever people have pronounced, to deal with whatever attitudes people have, to deal with whatever mistakes and that have been made, challenges that were faced. We'll give the process that we pronounced last week a chance. There is always a defining moment where you have to make a decision, collectively, in this case as Patriotic Front, whether or not we are making progress or what we are doing is detrimental to democracy or detrimental to the aspirations of the Zambian people. But for now, we think that we have mechanisms and capacity to be able to persuade each other and come to a common position that will serve the interests of the Zambian people. There are people who have made pronouncements. For example, Misaka Indechilema didn't make a pronouncement that is going to change the constitution. He even took the bill to Parliament. But through certain mechanisms, he was persuaded to withdraw. This time around, the speaker was even trying to impose and do a fast one on the Zambian people. Just a few weeks ago, they attempted to, even within the budget's, scrutiny process, they set a special day, I think it was a Thursday of the other week, when the bill needed to be presented to Parliament, discussed so that the process goes on. They made those decisions, but somehow they were persuaded otherwise, and today Bill 7 has been withdrawn. So I think give chance to the processes that we are undertaking towards reconciliation.
Yeah,
and remember, we are pronouncing that one of the legacy achievements of the late President Edgar Chakalungu was the declaration of the 18th of October as a day of prayer, repentance, and reconciliation. So that day is what we have targeted. As a way of honoring him, we should be able to achieve genuine reconciliation. And when we say genuine reconciliation, it's not just about personalities. It's also reconciling what has been pronounced and the decisions some people have made and those of other stakeholders who may not have been part of those decisions. So that we can be moving together.
Those of other stakeholders, including also members in the ruling UPND, are also targeting reconciliation in honor of the late former president, right?
Targeting what?
Reconciliation.
With who?
When you talk of reconciliation, not only among the Tonse Alliance members, but also you extend that hand to members of the ruling UPND.
No, I want you to focus on the subject. We're talking about unity in opposition. Okay?
So
And
it's
we're
selective
talking,
reconciliation.
no, the reconciliation at national level is a different subject. You can invite me tomorrow. Then we can be able to outline the issues that we need to reconcile on as a nation. Because right now we can divert. We need, for example, reconciliation around how we have handled the former president.
The funeral.
Including the funeral, just generally from the time he left office all the way to the
all right.
death.
I'll get your comment on that even as we come to the end of the interview.
Yeah.
So now, in your efforts to reconcile, and I must tell you that from the other side, it looks like they are very strong with the decisions that they have made. If those efforts to reconcile between perhaps maybe your party and the other party of the Shon Tembo and the Friends, if it fails, what happens? Are you going to come to a point where you maybe decide to leave Tonse Alliance? I've had a conversation with Dr. Dan Paul, and he says we are considering leaving Tonse Alliance because what is happening, we did not subscribe to this. We saw the NCP also come out somehow similar. Are you going to at some point now decide that, okay, fine, if this is a route that you want to take, we as a Patriotic Front are leaving Tonse Alliance?
I'm insisting, let's give a chance to the process.
If the process doesn't happen?
Well, the process is underway, and we're confident in the process.
And if the outcome is not what you want,
no,
you're still going to stick around?
I think you may have to respect the fact that I'll stick to my guns. Let's give a chance to the process. I can't begin to give conditions at this, but I can't be saying let's reconcile. Then I am also giving. If you are not willing to reconcile in Kakuma, then it means what is.
So you, as a PF, you don't have a fallback plan. For you, it's just Tonse Alliance, and it has to work.
No. I think that's a misconception. We are giving a chance to the demands of the Zambian people. The Zambian people have said unite. Okay? For those of us who are from the bigger political party and possibly more experienced and have had even the opportunity of being in government, everybody is saying bend backwards. They know the ones who are causing the atrocities and causing, injury to the idea of Tonse. They know we live in the same environment, but they are placing a demand on those of us in PF to say, do everything possible to make sure that the Tonse concept does not die, even if it has to be you bending backwards, swallowing every insult and every accusation and all that until you are able to salvage that which the Zambian people have accepted.
And that's
the Tonse concept has been celebrated by the Zambian people. And everybody is at pain to see that the petty squabbles could lead to almost breaking the alliance. You understand? And for me, I'm coming here as Secretary General to say we'll do everything possible to salvage Tonse. We will bend backwards. Let those who are expert at insulting others rudely and so on do their part, but we'll also try and sharpen our skill to be experts at managing, such people with love, with the spirit of reconciliation, and hopefully they can see that there is more in this thing than just personal and petty interests sometimes that can envelop somebody's mind or heart without being, objective. So we'll give this process a fair chance, and genuinely so. We think where there's genuineness, honesty, the results can only be positive.
SG, what of in your process, if the others say we love the process, but we are not, now that the former president is late, we're not for the idea that it should be automatic, that a presidential candidate must come from the Patriotic Front, and that's why we're saying let there be an internal